Feeling better.
Thank you.
I'd like to call the May 4th Commissioners meeting to order. And before I ask Commissioner McCoy to have the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation, I'd like to welcome Gordon Springle back.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And we're going to advise you to stay off of ruse.
Yes. I learned that lesson, I think.
Miss Barbara, if you would have our pledge and our invocation.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Lord, this is a difficult time for all of us all over the world. But through your grace and your mercy, you will get us through this. Heavenly Father, I ask you to continue to bless us and to give us your mercy and grace. I ask that you come into the midst of this meeting. Give us all a clean heart and a right mind to take care of the business of this county for the citizens of this county. Forgive us for our transgressions, Lord. This is our prayer, and in your name, amen.
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 Turn that on.
Do we have any additions or deletions to the published agenda?
We do have one addition, if possible, under item 7, which is the Johnsonville Elementary School discussion. If the board is willing, I've got a budget amendment prepared and a project ordinance to fund that if you so desire. So we just add that as discussion item 7A.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the amendment, the add-on, and we approve the published agenda as amended.
Second.
Do we have any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, do we have a, now before we leave that, we've just done, I thought, do we need to add John Rouse on? I'm sorry, I should have done that before we,
It's up to the board. It'll be under county manager's report,
Okay.
so you don't have to do that. He'll be the first item under there.
okay, all right. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Ayes have it. Appointments.
Come on, computer. Work with me.
I believe we have one.
We got one. It's the library board's. A move that Ronnie Vinston would like to be reappointed as District 1 representative for this board.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Next, we will gladly hear from Buren Fulmer, the Harnett County Ranger.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to come and speak with you today. The North Carolina Forest Service is a division underneath in the Department of Agriculture. We're a small agency, but I think we have a big footprint here in the county. Let's see if I can get this. All right. During the COVID-19 pandemic, forestry and the forest product industry has been labeled essential. A lot of people are wondering why we have been labeled essential. This next slide shows why we are essential. But we laugh about that, raw toilet paper, but I think it is kind of amusing. In the last month or so, we've certainly heard a lot about where our food comes from in grocery stores, coming from farms. But we also need to think about the other things that are in demand right now, such as toilet paper, wet wipes, baby diapers, and those kind of things. And all those things originate from our forest. It's because of a landowner who decides to sell timber to a logger who harvests the trees, who eventually get it to the mill to produce the things that we use every day. So we we always like to say where our toilet paper comes from. All right, toilet paper, I'm gonna kind of stick with the toilet paper theme here for a little while. Toilet paper for generations to come. Every year I try to pick something that the Forest Service does in the county to try to highlight. And this year I certainly want to highlight the tree planting effort that went on this past year. We planted more trees this year. The 2,118 acres is the most we've planted since 2005. That was a tremendous tree planting year. This picture here is of a track down in the Bun Level community. You may have saw it if you ride down 401 going towards Cumberland County. Property belongs to the Birds, and it had been bedded and planted, and that's the tree planting crew planting it. And if you do the math for that 2,118 acres, we usually plant about 500 trees to the acre. So that's been approximately 1,059,000 trees that have been stuck in the ground in Harnett County this year. That is certainly going to be a lot of toilet paper for future generations, as well as a lot of green space for future generations. The forest establishment, trying to get all these trees in the ground. The Forest Service doesn't actually put the trees in the ground. Everything is done by private contractors. And in this picture, the one on the left is of a bulldozer. We use a lot of heavy equipment. This was a V-blade. This was actually a track that had flooded out during Hurricane Florence 2 years ago and wiped all the trees out. Dozers come in, they V-shear with that big long blade in the front, and then they push that little bed up to keep the trees out of the bed, out of the water. The next slide over to the right is right here outside of Lillington, over near the hospital, and that's a herbicide job where they were going to spray the cutover in order to kill everything back so that that young tree, when it goes into the ground, doesn't have any competition. Really helps it out. We site prepped 1,845 acres, and like I said, all this was done by private contractors. The Forest Service, we just kind of handle the paperwork and make sure that it's done to state specs. The economic value of a pine tree in Harnett County. You got that little tree that's planted in the ground, but there's a lot of hands that touch it as that tree grows and matures. First thing, that herbicide company that comes out and applies that herbicide. Well, that herbicide is produced by companies such as BASF, Dow, DuPont, is some of the chemicals that we use. The heavy equipment contractors that come out and do the work. The seedling nurseries. Of course, the state owns a seedling nursery here in North Carolina, but there's also private nurseries that help produce those millions and millions of pine trees that are planted in the state every year. As the trees grow, there's some pre-commercial thinning and some maintenance that goes on in their life until they reach that harvest stage. And when that harvest stage occurs, landowners receive compensation when they sell those trees. They receive money. Of course, the buyers and the loggers who cut it, those loggers, when they show up on a job, there's usually over $1 million worth of equipment that shows up to do that type of harvesting. And of course, that equipment is produced by companies such as John Deere, Caterpillar, Tiger Cat. So you have that manufacturing side of it. Then you have the truckers that are on the road. And all you got to do is sit in Lillington at the big intersection. You see log trucks going back and forth all the time. And of course, they're buying fuel and all the stuff that they need to maintain those trucks. Then when that wood gets to that mill, those mills are very large employers in the state. The forest product industry is the #1 manufacturing industry in the state of North Carolina. So that's something that to really think about. 144,000 employees in that industry. And then eventually that product gets to the retailer, such as Lowe's and turns into the products that we use every day. I went back and done a research since 1997 when we started keeping up with the amount of acres in our computer, kind of a database system. There's been over 30,000 acres planted in Harnett County since 1997. So, lots of projects. Well, what does all this tree planting do to the Forest Service and to a forest ranger? It keeps me sitting in front of a computer. That's what it does. That's where I spend a lot of my time on some of these cost share projects. You can imagine any time that there's any type of government assistance or money given to landowners, that generates lots and lots of paperwork. This past year, as far as cost share coming to Harnett County landowners, the Environment Quality Incentive Program, which is the EQUIP program, was $125,000. The Florence Reforestation Fund was $98,000, and the Forest Development Fund was $41,000, for a total of $265,000 in cost share coming back to Harnett County landowners. With that, all this harvesting and replanting, there's logging that occurs, and the Forest Service goes out. We do active logging inspections. There's certain regulations that loggers have to abide by when they're in the woods as far as environmental concerns, creek crossings and such. We did 43 active logging inspections in 2019 with very little, or if any, we only had 2 or 3 violations, and that goes right back to the loggers doing what they should be doing in the woods and taking care of our environment. Now, May is Invasive Species Month. How many of you knew that?
No.
Yeah, probably didn't. But every year when I come to visit y'all in May, I always try to bring up a new invasive species that is entered into our environment. And this year is the spotted lanternfly. It came in through a port up in the northeast and has expanded into New York, Pennsylvania, and now Virginia. And so we're expecting it to show up in North Carolina, if not this year, certainly in the next year. And it's a sapsucker. And what it does is it bores into the tree and eventually weakens it enough that it eventually kills it. And these are the stages of it. The stage that does the damage is the nymph stage, which is the real colorful one at the top. The bad thing about the spotted lanternfly is it attacks not only, it'll attack ornamentals as well as native trees. So we're kind of on the lookout for it. Certainly if you see a moth like that at the bottom, when you're outside, that's going to be a pretty colorful thing to look at. We'll probably think it's pretty.
Fuller, I'm going to ask that somebody who's listening in needs to mute their phone because we hear you typing and it's hard for us to be able to concentrate. So please mute your phone. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But the spotted lanternfly, the actual adult stage is pretty. It's pretty with all the colors on it, but that is certainly something that we are on the lookout for. The critter that has me concerned in Harnett County is the Ips beetle. We are having a big problem with this over in the southern and western end of the county. He's one of our native pine beetles, but we have had a big problem with him moving into pine straw producing forest. And once he gets in there, because the trees are of a weakened state, he pretty much kills everything that's out there. In fact, this slide over here on the left was of a clear cut the 1st of April. We had about 3 tracks over there off of Hillman Grove Road that we had to do a salvage cut on. We're trying to figure out the correlation between the straw raking and the insect coming in. What we're thinking it is, at first we thought by removing the straw it was a nutrient deficiency, but what we're finding out that it's not the nutrient deficiency, it is the amount of evaporation and the fact that the straw is not there to hold the water in. So the trees are drought stressed, and especially on those sandy soils where water leaches through really quick, that straw would normally help hold that moisture there, and it's no longer there. So when these trees are 20 to 30 years old is when we're seeing this bug attack occur, and it can be quite devastating for that landowner, for sure. Monitoring the critters. Right here we got a picture of Jacob. Every spring we put out pine beetle traps to try to gauge the amount of beetle activity that we will have in the county. We put a pheromone into that trap as well as some pine scent that really attracts them. And what happens is the males have a tendency to come to those traps, and you're able to take the contents of those traps and you can count the amount of beetles that are in them, and that can give you an estimate on what the outlook looks like for this growing season as far as the beetle take. We look for southern pine beetle as well as ips, look at the different types of pine beetles that can be in it. Certainly southern pine beetle scares us as well as ips. And one of the traps we pulled 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a lot of beetles in it. So it's going to be an interesting summer to see if we see a spike in beetle activity. As far as 2019 fire season, in Harnett we had 189 fires that the Forest Service responded to that burnt 374 acres. I would say that is a average for the number of fires if you look back in history at the number of fires that occur in the county, but the acreage was certainly down due to how wet it was last year. I always think it's kind of neat to see that the number of starts normally stays about the same. It's just when it's wet, you won't have the acres that burns. And another thing that was interesting about this, last May when I was standing here talking with you, I was talking about how wet it was, and then we had a real dry May and June. Most of that acreage burnt in May and June of last year instead of the rest of the year. So that was kind of interesting. I'm kind of a numbers guy. I like to look at numbers and see how it pertains. Last year, the Forest Service assisted 2 states. It was kind of a quiet year out west. Normally, during the summertime, we go out and assist the western states during their fire season. And last year was pretty wet out there, but we did have some people that punched the golden ticket and got to go to Alaska on the fire detail and also Texas. Last year in 2019, we had our 12th environmental field day out at Anderson Creek Park. That was a big hit with some of the elementary schools over in western Harnett. But this year it got canceled, and because of COVID. If anybody needs a neon green t-shirt, I know where you can get one if you can wear a kid's size. I have a few in the office. You know, back when they were talking about masks a few weeks ago, before we all were given masks, I thought, hey, there's an idea for these t-shirts. But we're gonna, once everything gets back to normal, we're gonna find somewhere we can donate them and they can be distributed. I also learned a lesson. I'm not going to put 2020 Environmental Field Day on. I'm going to go with 13th annual, so we just can bump it up another year next year, and it won't lose the t-shirts due to the year being on the t-shirts. I'd never thought about that until this year. Some other projects, Carolina Lakes Firewise grant, they've been very active in the Firewise program, which is a national program about making your development fire ready, and they participate with a day of cleaning up the neighborhood and getting rid of fuel on the lot, and that was a big success. They get a grant every year to help pay for that. We also have applied for a community wildfire prevention program grant at Anderson Creek Park to do controlled burning, as well as some private property up near Raven Rock. So that was great that we get those grants in order to do that controlled burning and not have to charge the landowner, or as Anderson Creek Park, the county. Another project that we had this past year was working with the county, Parks and Recreation. They applied for a Duke Energy grant to do some work over at the Anderson Creek Park. This is the crew on the left getting ready to start. We just finished this the week after Easter. And this was a block, if you look at the map, kind of towards the east side of Anderson Creek Park. It was 48 acres that was planted in longleaf, but the loblolly had kind of overtook the longleaf, so Duke, through a grant, was able to come in there, and we were able to cut out the loblolly as well as some of the hardwood to try to get that back to the natural longleaf pine ecosystem that needs to be out there on the park. So we just finished up with that, and everything looks really good out there. We're real happy that Duke was able to support that project. Fire department training. We work with different fire departments in the county every year. This picture here is of a chainsaw safety class up with Northwest Harnett that we finished about back in February. But these are the departments that either receive chainsaw safety or some form of wildland fire training at their fire departments this past year. Future needs of the Forest Service. One thing you'll notice, that's our new truck that we hoped to get in service this week. We're waiting on the tags, but they changed colors. We've always had green trucks, now we got white trucks. Why do we go from green to white? It's about $1,000 savings going with the white trucks. And you probably have noticed a lot of state vehicles now are going all white, and that's the reason behind it. But we got a new truck last year, but we also need a new truck this year. We're trying to get rid of the 2013 that we have, starting to get a lot of miles on it. So that's definitely going to be one of the needs that's in the budget for this year. And then at some point, our bulldozer, which sits right over here, we would love to get some type of roof over the top of that to try to keep that covered and keep it out of the weather. The good thing is our new dozer is an environmental cab, so we no longer have to put the owl inside of it to keep the birds from going inside of it. But it would be nice to get a permanent cover over that piece of equipment. This is my what a deal page. Last year, the Forest Service asked for $136,272 from the county. This is just a list of all those cost share programs, bringing money back to Harnett County landowners and organizations, and that totaled $344,000. I like to think that's a pretty good return on that investment. This year, we're asking for a little bit of an increase. We're asking for $142,878. That's an increase of $6,606. Why is the increase? Here it is. The truck prices went up. Trucks went up about $5,000. If you break that down, since we are 60-40, 60% state, 40% county, the county share of that is $2,000. The state health plan, we have 4 employees here in the county. The total of $905 for that. There was a proposed 2.5% pay raise for 4 employees. I know this budget, when we put it together, was before the last 6 weeks or so, but they proposed a 2.5% budget pay increase for us, which was $1,600 and then there was a retirement rate increase of $2,093. Our operating budget, exact same as last year. Those are the reasons for that increase. And just wanted to make you aware of why we were asking for that $6,000 increase. And like I always like to touch on, because we're a state agency, certainly get county funding, we're 60% state, 40%, and it's based on receipts. So every month the Harnett County gets a bill based on 40% of what we spent the month before. So I just always, it's not like you're giving that whole $142,000. It kind of comes out throughout the year, and it also, if we take a state cut, then that's directly related, because if we don't have the money on the state side to spend, we can't bill you, because we have to spend it, the state funds first. So with that, I'll ask you if you have any questions, and I'll be like Smokey here, and I'll hit the road.
Is that a Barrett from North Carolina?
Yeah, that's in Cumberland County.
Cool.
Yeah. And he come out and looked at us and decided to go the other way.
Anybody got any questions?
I got a question.
Yeah.
Of the 189 fires burning 374 acres, were they man-made?
Most of them were. Debris burning is the #1 reason for fires here in the county, careless debris burning. We do have some natural fires such as lightning, but usually that's probably less than 1 to 2% of those fires. Most of it is debris burning, and it's that way all the way across the state. Careless debris burning.
Did the Forest Service respond to all those fires?
We respond to all woods and brush fires, and then we have to find how the fire started and then take appropriate action.
Now, do you bill people for that?
Well, what we would do is we would cite them, and then it would be up to a judge if we were going to get restitution for that. But most of the time, no.
I always thought that was something, you know, that needed to be charged, because that's carelessness on a landowner. And then you've got people that, you got the river running 12 feet above flood stage, and they're out kayaking and
Out
people
kayaking, and
they
that
ought to be
cost of
charged.
going. Yeah.
People ought to be charged for stupidity.
Yeah.
Now, how do you charge them? Do you have to have an investigation or something to determine?
Yeah, we'll investigate, figure out how the fire started, and then that person will either be issued a warning ticket in some cases or a citation.
Okay.
Any more questions? Thank you, Gary, for
All right,
coming and
well, thank
bringing
you.
us up to speed, particularly on the toilet paper issue. I'm sure my wife will be very appreciative.
That's right. We'll see y'all later. Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have Paula Stewart is going to talk to us about our budget.
Nope, I'm gonna talk to you about Johnsonville first.
I'm sorry, but it's still going to affect the budget, but keep going.
Okay. I was contacted by Dr. Aaron Fleming back in April about a Board of Education request to the Harnett County Board of Commissioners. They sent a letter dated, they had a Board of Education work session on April 20th, and the Board of Ed approved a plan to renovate Johnsonville Elementary School. And if you will recall, we've had this discussion several times in the past. It's been on their list of, it's been on the renovation list for a while. So what, we spoke about how to fund it, or part of it, and so we've got the 2017 GO bonds that were used to issue the Ben Haven School. We have some of the GO bond issuance money left over. So they felt like this was a good use of those funds. The proposal that they sent that was in your packet includes 2 phases. I'm going to be discussing phase 1 today because that's the one where we have the money already, the GO bond money is already allocated or can be used for that. So the cost of phase 1 was $5.1 million, and it includes demolishing the existing cafeteria, the kitchen, a classroom building, and the gymnasium locker room extension, and then doing repairs to the gym. It would also provide for a temporary cafeteria and kitchen while the demo is going on, and then construction of a new cafeteria. Restrooms would be constructed to support the cafeteria and the classroom addition. It would provide mechanical, electrical, and data rooms, and provide air conditioning in the gym. It also would include construction of the building pad for phase 2, if so desired by the board, and that would be either a 6 or 11 classroom addition. The allowance would also include upgrades to the existing playground. So in all, again, all of those things total $5.1 million, and there's plenty of detail in the request that they sent. There's also options included for a phase 2A and a phase 2B. 2A would be a cost of $4.4 million, and 2B would be $6.8 million. And you can read those details. I'm not going to speak about them today. So what I'm coming to the board for today is for you to vote on a request by the Board of Education for a project ordinance and a budget amendment, which were the 2 items we added this morning as 7A, using the 2017 GO bond funds in order to do this issuance or allocation for the board to do this renovations at Johnsonville.
Can I ask a question?
You can.
I know that this is really needed, because I do feel that they should have been pushed up before some of this other stuff has been done, because Johnsonville has been deteriorating for a long time. But you said the funds are already there, right?
No, this project, phase 1, would include the foundation for the phase 2 possible renovation. There's no foundation. There's nothing done yet.
Nothing done.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
This will be starting and completing all of those items.
Okay. You know when it will start?
I do not know.
Okay.
So it's 5.1 just for the cafeteria.
Right.
So the
And the renovations to the gym, those few things I mentioned. Mhm.
Cool.
Now, is this number a number they got from a contractor, or is this something they come out and pull out of the air?
The architect, Tom Hughes, worked on this and gave us a detailed budget, which was in your packet. So there are numbers backed up by the architect, of SFLNA, the one that's doing Irwin, the Irwin School.
Okay.
It's amazing to come up with the exact amount.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing about it is, are you sure that it won't increase?
We do not know what, it could increase. You're absolutely right, because as we know, our building, anytime you get ready to build, you don't know until you put it out for bid. So this is just an estimate.
Okay.
So Chairman, I guess 7A would be what you would,
Yes, so we're looking for a motion on the 5.1, well, it's actually $5,168,000 $63,000. Is that correct?
Yes. That's
Right,
what's
well,
in
we
the-
were, right, and if you look at
Phase
your,
one, I'm sorry.
right, for phase one, if you'll look at that, the, project ordinance, we only did the 5.1 million, because that's what's in the
Right.
GO fund balance, not the,
Okay,
that little bit of difference.
okay. So, do I have any motion on the $5.1 million that we have in the GO bond funds, money that's available?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we move the money to the capital fund, $5.1 million that we have left over from the Benhaven School into the Johnsonville cafeteria phase one.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any additional discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous?
And just to clarify, that was approved in the project ordinance and the budget amendment.
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Now we'll do the presentation of the long-awaited for budget.
Right. We'll wait for it to load up on the screen. I've provided a complete budget message and the complete budget to you last week in your packet. So today I decided to just give you an overview of a PowerPoint presentation to pull out some of the items from the budget message instead of reading it to you, because you can read it for yourself. So if you will recall, in January and February, our revenues were up across the board. We almost had a complete recovery from the 2008 recession. And then 3 months later, we've been faced with one of the worst economic crises in history. We use guidance provided by the NCACC, the North Carolina League of Municipalities, and others when preparing our revenue projections. And it's important for me to tell you, we did not project revenues based on the most dire situation possible. Some economists are predicting declines in the national gross domestic product of 20 to 50% in the second quarter of 2020. Jobless claims are at record levels, and some expect the national unemployment rate to reach 20%. So how quickly the economy will recover once businesses are reopened is anybody's guess. So our goal was to prepare a budget that considered these effects, but we didn't cut more severely without having these other factors, without knowing for sure what was going to happen. So we did see an anticipated revenue hit across the board. Lower property tax collections could be affected by the unemployment. Lower sales tax collections resulting from unemployment, also due to the stay-at-home order and closure of some businesses. And we won't see the impact on the sales tax until around June, so it was very hard to predict what exactly was going to happen right now. Lower development fees could be affected by developer cash flow and lower demand for new homes. There's reduced service charges and fees as residents will reduce the consumption of discretionary spending. And the state is discussing extending the motor vehicle registration deadline 6 months, which could negatively impact our registered motor vehicle tax collections. So overall, in the general fund, we're projecting a 3% decline. I want to talk a little bit about our budget process and how we had a huge deficit in the beginning, and we've worked hard to close the shortfall. So every department in the county was affected except Harnett County Schools, and we also did not affect our current employee pay and benefits. We left all that in place in this budget. We did have to propose to freeze and unfund 20 positions, and the difference between that and what we've done this year, we did a freeze this year, if you remember, to try to save money for what may come. This is a little different. This is unfunding the position for 1 year. So a department won't be able to come back and fund it unless there's a revenue source that we feel like that we can put toward that, or if we get money from the state or feds, we could possibly unfreeze some of these. Another thing, we removed the $100,000 transfer for greenways in fiscal year 21 and reduced the transfer to our fleet replacement by $50,000. We don't think either one of those will be too negative of an impact. The greenways, we're just doing the greenway master plan this year, so we feel like putting it off 1 more year will not be negative in the long run. We also increased our EMS fees. We have now outsourced our EMS billing to a third party, and they reviewed our current fees and recommended these increases based on data from surrounding counties. And we were able to gain around $3 million just from increasing our 911 transport fees. So that was a big help for us in the budget. We did have to appropriate $2.5 million from fund balance, but as you know, in the years past, it may not be necessary to actually use it. We just allocate for it, and then sometimes the revenues outweigh that. We don't know this year how it'll look, but we're hopeful that we won't have to actually use that money. This is just a snapshot of how the numbers fell out, and you can see reductions across the board except for a couple of areas, and I'll talk about them in a moment. So we did have minimal increases in our Parks and Recreation and the library budgets in order to open new facilities. We know we have new parks opening, we've got the new building, the new resource center and library. So we felt like we have to adequately staff those positions and in order to take care of the services that we had promised to the citizens. There's a small increase in the performance pay plan that we have and an extension of the performance pay plan to our part-time employees. So all total, that's less than $80,000 that we're giving a tiny increase to our employees through the performance pay plan. We also are proposing to increase our solid waste fees, going from $65 a year to $80 a year. This is the first increase since 2013. And in order to fund the capital projects and capital needs in solid waste, that's why there's been a recommended fee increase. And also Appendix 1 of the document you have will have all the additional fee charges in it. The budget also keeps our capital improvements plan on track, except for the greenway and fleet reductions I spoke about earlier. We hold Harnett County Schools harmless for reduced student population and for spending the lottery funds for the land. So again, we held them harmless because I think they've lost 127 students in this current year. So that way we're not decreasing their funding. Some good news on the budget. We created a separate capital improvements plan last fall that helped us so that now we could actually focus more closely on the operating budget. So I hope it's been helpful to y'all to separate these two in the budget. Also, we had department heads that we did a whole new training and a whole new budget process where they had to have a continuation budget as well as an expansion budget. And by splitting that out, we were able to really see what the needs were to continue the current services and then make educated decisions on any expansions. And departments through that process were able to reduce their initial request by $1 million. Typically they come in, the operating costs come in over budget, but by going through this exercise of training how budget should be done, departments cut themselves about $1 million, which was very good. And the revenue methodology that we've used, we've constantly over time been improving our process, so we should be able to spot any problems with our revenues early so that we can make changes if necessary to our budget throughout the year. So even if we had not had the pandemic happen, here's some facts that we presented to you in January at your retreat. Our property values per capita ranked 95th in the state. We currently have about $200 less per resident to spend on services compared to average counties our size. The average cost of a new home doesn't pay enough in taxes to fund one student, let alone the other services that are required, such as sheriff, EMS, everybody else, health department, social services. We have just ended the longest economic expansion in history, and we were trying the whole time to significantly increase school spending, and we have not been able to do that. I know that's something the board is really wanting to do, and we have tried hard and just were not able to again this year. We hope to continue to focus our efforts on economic development and ways to improve our property values. So with our reappraisal coming up and we're just adding a new person to economic development, we're hoping that these two areas will significantly help us with our revenue losses. We wanted to do a new chart for you this year. This is a little different than the dollar chart we did last year. This is actually out of the 75 cents per $100 valuation. This is how your tax dollars, the local dollars, are spent. So out of the 75 cents that people pay, out of each of the 75 cents that you pay, education gets 22 cents out of that 75, public safety gets 20 cents, and then everybody else gets the remaining 33 cents. So that's just a little different way of looking at it. This is actually the tax dollars that it takes to operate these categories. I wanted to mention a few highlights. We usually do this at budget time, kind of giving y'all some credit for some of the things and letting you know what we've done this past year. So Harnett Regional Water again received North Carolina and national accolades for drinking water quality, again affirming its mission to deliver a superior product at a reasonable cost. They also continue to implement better customer service through new software and smart metering upgrades. These projects will give customers more control over their accounts, and just so you know, the smart metering upgrades are going to start soon. That'll be an ongoing project for a couple of years. We're looking forward to that. A lot of you probably have had your Duke Energy meters changed out to smart meters, and it'll give customers much more information ahead of time. And Harnett Regional Water also continues to maintain a very strong financial position even during the COVID-19 crisis. In solid waste, they have been working in conjunction with the Keep Harnett Beautiful team to promote anti-litter campaigns, education and outreach programs, as well as cleanup events. We're in the process of relocating the convenience site at the Dunn-Irwin landfill outside the landfill gate to be more accessible to citizens and ease some of the traffic along that area. They're also making significant improvements. They have made some, and they're still continuing to make them at other sites, including the Mamers convenience site. They're also continuing efforts to improve communication with citizens and improve digital communication via their website. And this is just a picture showing the team of our last pickup over this was taken at Anderson Creek Park, and we went out from there to pick up trash. So in Parks and Recreation, the first phases of Patriots Park off Ponderosa Road and the Government Complex Park that's behind these buildings will be completed this summer. New tennis courts were constructed at Neals Creek Park behind Harnett Central Middle School, and additional lights were added at Neals Creek Park and at Barbecue Creek Park. A comprehensive greenway master plan for the county will start soon and will provide the framework for a greenway system that will connect points of interest throughout the county and also connect to other trails in other counties. We're trying to do a regional approach to our greenways. And this is a picture of the 6 new courts at Neals Creek Park. We're also proud of the renovation work we've done on the former schools. In August, the Shawtown Community Development Center opened. The facility houses the new Boys and Girls Club of Central Carolina, Robin Page Club, the Reentry Family Services Program, the Sheriff's Office POW, Harnett County Work Readiness Training Center, and it has a few rooms that are community meeting rooms that can be, once the COVID-19 is over, that can be used by the community to hold meetings. We also completed the demolition of the former Boone Trails School to make way for a future park and some more trails there. We also acquired the former Benhaven Elementary School, and we're working to condition and preserve the space for a new community center and a possible early college on the campus. And if you've ridden out there lately, we're out there quite heavily right now doing a lot of the renovation work. We're doing floors, painting, and this is in the gym and the classroom area for the early college if necessary. And it is really going to look nice. This is a picture of the Shawtown Community Development Center. Once the other buildings had been torn down, this is what's left. The Resource Center and Library and DSS addition are moving along. Construction began in the fall for this 56,000 square foot Resource Center and Library and a 10,000 square foot addition on DSS. This will include much needed site improvements and a new entrance off McKinney Parkway that you can see as you come to this building. The DSS addition will be completed this summer, and the Resource Center and Library is expected to open in early 2021. And this is a recent drone shot of it. The white roof on the bottom building, that's the DSS addition, and then the building behind the Veterans Park, of course, is the Resource Center and Library. That project is going very well. We're in the final stages of picking out furniture for DSS, so that'll be ordered pretty quickly because they're going to be moving in this summer. Some other ongoing efforts to give you an update on. The CCCC Harnett Promise program began in the fall of 2019 with 210 students enrolled. This budget includes funding for the entire year at $420,000. The Board of Commissioners approved funding to construct 2 new elementary schools at a cost of $51.5 million. This was the replacement of Irwin Elementary School and a new Northwest Harnett Elementary School, along with the land for the school and a future middle school in the Northwest Harnett area. Our office and other offices continue to promote the 2020 census, and as of April 2020, we had 45.2% of Harnett County residents had completed the questionnaires, and you've probably heard the federal government, they've extended that to October now, so we've got a little bit more time to make some more pushes to the census. And this is just a picture of the Irwin Elementary layout plan. And with that, that is the budget presentation, and I'm open for questions or comments. And I did want to thank our whole team for all their hard work. We had a lot of different people. I'm not going to name names specifically, but they know who they are. we had a lot of help putting all these presentations together, putting the budget together, and actually working on the budget in the new software. This is the first year we will have done the budget module in our new software, so we've really worked hard to give you a budget that you can be proud of.
I think I like the new layout of each department that you've come through, if I can figure it out.
Okay.
I see that, you know, if you look, which one am I on now? I just got one picked out here. You've got fiscal year 19 actual, fiscal year 20. Is that revised budget?
Hold, I will pull it up in just 1 second.
And any one will say the same thing. I'm just trying to figure out how to crunch the numbers.
Okay, so yes, so fiscal 18 actual, fiscal 19 actual, and then fiscal year 20 revised budget. That means this current year, after any budget amendments had been done, anytime we've made revisions to the budget, that's that number. And then fiscal year 21 is recommended continuation, which means that's what I've recommended out of what everybody requested. That's what the manager's recommendation is.
Okay, so that's recommended continuation.
Continuation, and then
Okay.
recommended expansion is the next one. So if anybody, a lot of departments asked for expansions and we weren't able to fund them, so these are the only expansions that were funded are in that column. And then fiscal year 21 total, that's the total recommended. And then the recommended variance is the difference between the current revised budget and the total recommended this year. So if you take that 66 million minus the 66,850, you get 770,000.
Yeah, I
That
just
means,
didn't-
I know, I'm so sorry. I should have put a little, we should have put some headings for what those meant. We should have spelled them out for you. I apologize for that.
That's no problem. I just knew we had time to ask that question. And then I had one other question just that you went over this morning. I'll get to it. You had the new graph of where each one, how many cents of every dollar go in.
Right.
And you've got human services down here at 8 cents. But then you go to the very next graph, and human services is 20% of the budget. How does that make sense?
So the graph, so the chart is actually, you take everything, and I may have to get help explaining how we did it this year, but we took the total budget and we took each, let me think how to.
Well, one is 75 cents, and the other one is the
It's
total dollars
Right,
that we get coming in.
right.
So there's a difference in the two, because you get other revenues coming in other than just the 75
And
cents
see, the
property
page
tax.
2, yeah, that's revenue, that's total revenues. That's
Yes.
state and everything. And that is just local
That's why
dollars.
there's a difference.
So
Okay.
so the first chart is just local dollars.
Yeah.
And the other two, the first graph is expenditures by type, which is what you're used to seeing. That's the one
Right.
we usually show you.
Right.
But this time we added general fund revenues by type, and then also we broke it down into local dollars only in that top.
Okay,
one.
so the
it's
second graph includes federal and state
That
funding.
includes all other funds,
Yeah, all
right?
revenues.
That's total budget.
Yes.
Do you throw a curve at an old man?
I'm
you
so
mess him
sorry.
up.
I know, it's very confusing, because we have changed it up a little bit, but we're hoping that the information we give you is more, it helps you paint a better picture of what the local dollars are.
Oh, and I like the way you've got it laid out. I was just lost trying to punch numbers, and
Make it work.
I came in this morning early and went to Kimberly, and she was trying to explain it to me too, and so.
Well, I think you did a good job in preparing the budget for this year, because I've looked over it. Also, I particularly like that you have laid it out so you can predict any changes that may occur throughout the year, and then try to address those changes, You're not able to give the employees a COLA, but you're giving them an increase in pay. Can you, or have you all predicted what percentage that
Well,
increase will add up to?
We did. Currently, the performance pay plan is 1.33% per year. So 1.33% of somebody's salary is the amount they would receive currently. And this budget goes up to 1.5%. So you can see it's very nominal,
Yeah.
but it goes up to 1.5%. Our goal when we started this pay for performance was to go up a little bit each year and try to reach 2%. But we're now at 1.5. That's what we're proposing.
And what are you predicting? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
During this critical time, I think it's wise what you all have done here with the budget. Another thing, I just got one more point.
Okay, go ahead.
Joe, I can say that this past year we did open up the community center out there in Choctaw. I just want to make it an announcement to you all that that was one of the best things we have done. Not only for that community, but for the children of this county, because of the Boys and Girls Club out there and because of the PAL. And I'm particularly pleased at the fact that the PAL is providing meals for the citizens all over this county out there, especially for the young children and all. So I'm very proud that we all work towards making that happen. And just want to say thanks. Thanks.
Thank y'all for funding it. That was a great improvement for that area. Commissioner Miller?
What is your estimated percentage of our employees that meet their goal?
I do not have that in front of me, but we can get it for you. Not everybody, I do know that not everybody gets it. Not everybody gets that pay for performance, because again, you have to perform in order to get the money. So everybody does not get it, but we can get back to you on the.
Well, I was just wondering, because I knew we were going through training processes with our supervisors and our managers.
It's been a long training process, and we're finally getting there.
Yeah, you know, it's easy to go here, everybody gets it, but we all know that we've got a few that don't deserve it. And I was just wondering.
And HR they do have people that have been reading every performance review and making sure that what is said reflects what the number given on the grade is, and then that determines whether or not they get the increase. So there is a check and process.
Okay, and your reason for going above the 1.3 to the 1.5?
Because in the beginning, when we first proposed it to y'all several years ago, we were trying to get to the 2% because we did some calculations. If we got to 2%, that would be about what it would take for somebody to move all the way through their range. So if you started here and stayed 30 years, you would go all the way through, not all the way through the range, but you would make headway into getting to the end of your salary range.
Cool.
There's just a path to give people some hope that there would be a path to get an increase.
But we changed that formula though, didn't we?
This year we're changing it to
changed it.
1.5, right?
That's the best thing could ever happen to employees here in this county.
Yep.
That we
Because-
changed that formula.
Because one of the things we do, in the past, we'd always get a cost of living increase. We haven't given one since 2016, and I had tried so hard in this budget to give employees a COLA, but the money just did not come out. We didn't have the funds, but we thought if we could do a little something, it would at least show them that we did, and we didn't take away any benefits. Those of you that were here during the Great Recession, we had to cut people and benefits. So we were trying to preserve that, and then just go forward with something small.
Good job.
I would like, I think one of your things that you looked at as far as the budget, you talked about housing. I can tell you that there is not a slowdown in the county. The contractors are going wide open, and they're selling houses as fast as they can build them. Matter of fact, I was talking to a developer the other day, and he said that he got some property they were ready to develop, and people were buying lots before he could develop them. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it is out there. It's absolutely incredible what's taking place.
And we did project a slight decrease in that, so hopefully if that revenue comes in, that can help us fund some of those other things we talked about that we had to take out.
And the other question I have, on the solid waste, didn't we start another area in Coach Irwin landfill from the mountain to another?
Right. We've got to do a closure of the old landfill site and open the new one.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the other one had gotten quite dangerous. It was pretty steep and definitely had to make some changes there.
And also in that budget too, aren't we required to maintain all the ones we've closed?
Yes,
Okay.
that's included.
Okay. I think people forget that. That's something we have to do. I thought it looks great. It looks good to me.
And we plan, the next steps are, we plan to have next week's work session to be a budget work session only. And there may be a couple of small things, but hopefully we can focus on the detailed budget, the fire department, rescue squad budgets. There's a couple other things y'all need to talk about in detail. So we'll do that on May 12th.
Okay.
I just want to say, Paula, I think you did a wonderful job. But I really do think that if this pandemic continues, there will be a slowdown in the building and the purchasing of the.
Well, you would think that, but the surprising thing is that I was talking to a realtor the other day. We're going to get, North Carolina's going to get slammed. This thing's over. We're going to have a 95 is going to be full of people hiding here in the South. Get that right.
Well, biggest thing I'm hearing is selling homes as fast as they can sell them. They can't close them.
Oh, yeah.
They can't get them closed because of,
Other things.
and once again, it's killing us. Bedroom County, we're getting abused.
Well, I put a house up for sale and sold it in less than a week.
And I did want to mention that the state legislators and the federal legislators, we're hoping we can get some coronavirus relief funds. And if we do get any, we need it for lost revenue, which is what they're not giving us so far. So far, all the money can only be spent on COVID-related expenses, but we're hoping we can get some relief from that. And we did over the weekend. The state legislature did pass it, and Harnett County will receive some funds that go along with the CARES Act requirements.
So I think the second phase of that $3.5 billion is supposed to be money for the counties, I think.
If we get that, it'll really help out this budget tremendously.
Yeah.
If there's no more comments, Paul, I would like to thank you and Renee and Kimberly and the ones who spent the time, because obviously, to me, this budget process was a lot easier to understand. And of course, for those who are listening via our call-in, this is not the final budget today. We kind of did our process differently this year. This is just the beginning of the message as we work forward. But I like the format and everything you've done, and thank you for making it a little bit easier to understand.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have County Manager's Report.
Okay, we have John Rouse here who's going to come in and do a COVID-19 update with you and some information he's put together that'll help you understand it better, and then I'll come back up and finish the County Manager's Report.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
You got a flicker for me, or you going to deal with this thing here? That work? Okay. Been playing a little bit with some of the numbers that we put out every day. Not a lot of new stuff here, but it's just a different way to kind of look at it. I wanted to share that with you today. This actually goes through the end of April, so I believe last Thursday is where these numbers go. Then we were at 156 cases. We've got had 7 deaths. This is just a graph in the number of cases starting back in March, and we were increasing, but then of course there toward the end of April you can see that big jump. That's involving our long-term care facilities, and we've also had some involved with the meatpacking facilities as well. Daily case count, you can see fairly stable except for that one big jump. That was our long-term care facility. And then we did like a weekly breakdown of the cases. Then of course toward the end of April is when they really had that big jump in our number of cases. That's a breakdown of cases by age. We had been doing that, I think it would range from like 2 to age 97. We broke it down a little bit more with our age range. And what this mainly points out is kind of like what we've seen all along with this virus. It does mainly affect adults. And then again, the elderly especially hit hard. And then by gender, we have been reporting that to you. Death by gender as well. And then, of course, the deaths by age, with the biggest majority being in 65 plus age group. So again, it's just a little different way of looking at the numbers that we've had. We're talking about putting this out maybe twice a month now, and we'll share that. I'll shoot that to Paul and share that with everybody. But anybody got any questions or?
John, on the number of cases, that doesn't mean that these people are in the hospital. That just means that they are tested positive.
It means they've tested positive, yes.
So what percentage of the people tested positive are actually sick? I mean, in the hospital, sick? You have any idea?
It's just a small number. I don't remember. I don't know what that number would be. I think we're up to about 80, low 80s on people that have actually recovered. There for a while, we were getting positive test results back and contacting the patient. They had already recovered. Of course, when we got in with the long-term care facility, that number's kind of gone down, but we were seeing a lot of that for a while, and that tends to occur more with the younger population that we're getting positive results on.
Well, I noticed last night on the news, all the people that tested positive in North Carolina, there were only 475 people in the hospital throughout the entire state, which I thought was,
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good thing that the numbers are low, but people still are not adhering to the rules and all of that, so we have to continue to thank the governor and you all for putting out plans that has been helpful to keep the numbers down here in this county. So I just want to say I thank you for the chart. It does make it more clear and all of that as to what's going on here in this county. And I think that we've got to find a way for people to continue to, for us to continue to stress to the citizens here how important this is. This is not anything that's a play. And we've been fortunate. We have been blessed. But I think I'm hoping and praying that it'll stay that way. That's all I can say. Thank you, John.
You're welcome. I did want to mention to you, we have, you're familiar with the outbreaks we've had at the long-term care facilities, but we've also had, we don't have a meat producing plant in the county, but we have had cases associated with the poultry plants in that you've heard about in Chatham and Lee, and I believe one in Sampson, and even down at Tar Heel. So we are having to initiate contact tracing and that type of thing for those as well. So I did want to mention that to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you a lot, John. It's
John,
helpful to actually have you
don't
break
go
it down.
far, please, sir. Stick around, because we got new business. I need you again.
Okay.
Thank you.
So next, under the county manager's report, I'd like for Brian Haney to chime in now on the employee turnover chart that we gave you. I think Ms. McCoy had initiated asking for this we've been asking for it several months to see what our turnover rate is, so we're finally here to present it to you today. So Brian?
Good morning, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Good. Well, first I want to say good morning, everybody. Welcome back, Commissioner Springfield.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you. Commissioner Miller, just to your point earlier, your question about the performance pay plan. Unfortunately, we've really not had the ability to keep 4 pages in there with the turnover data, turnover information that's been requested. Several months ago, we presented the first 2 pages to you, kind of your overall turnover information for the county. And the first 2 pages you've got in front of you include that same information with updates for through February of this year. The page 1 breaks down by fiscal year since July of 2015. You've got your total employees for each year. You've got your average unemployment rate, your annual turnover, and your turnover rate per year. The second page shows your unemployment rate compared with the turnover rate, because obviously there is some impact from the unemployment rate on your turnover. Page 3 is the new information. Following our last meeting, there was some interest in seeing that turnover rate for the county broken down by certain departments that really made up a larger percentage of your workforce and may have had some areas where turnover was more of an issue. So we broke the countywide turnover rate down to show specific turnover rates in social services, emergency services, and the sheriff's office. So you can see what percentage those departments make up of the county's overall turnover rate. And for the last 5 years, it's been anywhere from 41% to 66% of the turnover rate. So it is a substantial portion. The pie chart you've got on that page shows the percentage over the last 5 years. And then on page 4, we've broken that down into a chart for each of those 5 years. So it shows in any given year what percentage of that turnover rate is made up by those departments as compared to the other departments. So we wanted to give you that information, and first, just ask, is this the information that you want to see? Is this helpful? And if so, going forward, I've asked HR to start providing quarterly reports in your packet that will give you a snapshot of turnover data going forward, and then maybe compare that to last year's as well. So is that what y'all are looking for from the turnover?
That's good.
Information?
Good.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, looks good.
Yep.
Okay, and we can break it down further, but obviously those are your big departments that do contribute. They just have a lot of employees, so obviously there's a lot of turnover. So that further breakdown, if that's what you're comfortable with, we'll start preparing those reports for you and include them in your packet quarterly if that's acceptable.
Great.
Sounds good.
I think it's great. The more employees that we have to retrain, the more money it costs us.
That's right.
So, real pleased.
Very good.
All right, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
The next item I just want to mention briefly, Victoria Witt usually comes and does her budget request just like Buren did for the Forest Service. She's not able to travel during this event, so it's in your packet, and really the main message of it is she did not ask for an increase again. This makes 16 years of no increase in funding requested by Sandhill Center, which is quite amazing. They do a lot with what they get, and she's very appreciative for everything that the board does for them, and everything's in your packet. And she said she would like to come later and just talk to you whenever they open the travel back up and we allow more people in our meetings. So, and then the last thing I'll mention, Johnson Lee Harnett Community Action sent us a letter. It's just a notice, and I just put it in your packet so you could see it. They're going to receive a grant for Hurricane Florence from the Office of Economic Opportunity. It's a community service block grant that you're used to hearing about, and the max amount per household will be $5,000, and the direct amount in Harnett is somewhere around $30,000, so that could be up to 6 homes. So if you know if you have any homes that you know that were damaged during Hurricane Florence, they will be able to apply through Johnson Lee Harnett Community Action for some funding. And just be on the lookout for that. She'll send it once they get the award, she'll let us know about their application starting for our residents, and we'll work with her to advertise that in the county.
I think it's amazing what that organization does for Harnett County and how it reaches out to help so many citizens in this county.
And they have the lowest administrative cost of any nonprofits in North Carolina, probably.
That's true. That is so true.
It's incredible.
And that's all I have, Chairman.
New business. I think Mr. Miller's got something.
Yes, sir. Can we call Mr. Rouse back in, please? I've talked with Mr. Rouse the other day. I think we need to, as a county, be proactive and be ready to set this county back in gear when we are reopened, when Governor Cooper decides that, and I guess it's the 8th, he's going to talk to us again about what his plans are for the county. John and I talked on the phone about some different things that we need to do, maybe to get ready, so when it does open, we're already prepared. We were discussing things like, if they're opening up restaurants, every other table being left open. The bank, so many people, why can't we do the same square footage at a jewelry store that we do at Home Depot or Lowe's? If they have a capacity of 10, maybe cut it to 5. Hair salons, barber shops, make it mandatory that they wear masks, except for the person in the chair. It's kind of hard to fix hair and cut hair with the mask on the person in the chair. We've got to ask the county to use common sense. Yes, 90% of it's hand touch to the face, but he still can in some of these close quarters. I guess we can get it through breathing, if I'm not mistaken there. So I wanted John just to be here today in case he's got some other things or questions y'all have for him, any questions that, you know, we need to be ready and direct staff to come up with something so we can put it out, that what we want to do, what we want to happen once we're open. And I think it needs to be out before Governor Cooper turns us loose. We need to know what to do and what to expect. I've talked to the sheriff about it, as far as riding by, policing some of the places that are opening up. I know I've talked with Chet Mann in Lee County, and they do that. The police force in Sanford does it. They go by and check numbers, and you know, people talk about Lowe's being full. Well, the way Governor Cooper wrote up his plan, you're allowed so many people in the building. I was at Walmart yesterday, and they were counting people coming in and out. So I'm just thinking, as a county, we need to be ready. And if we could direct, as a board, direct the staff to work with Mr. Rouse and his department on how we could work all these businesses and get them open as fast as possible. Y'all have any questions for John, or any ideas, or?
Well, I for one, agree with it, but I think when the governor does give his next executive order for the state, it gives a guideline to follow through Harnett County. I don't think that's going to be too hard to put in practice, put in effect in this county, and I think it's a great idea.
The big thing, I think the big thing we can do, Joe, is I think we can promote what the governor allows us to do in each phase, but you hear it from the state, but you don't hear it from the counties. So it needs to come from the counties too. You know, ask you to put out more information about what we're encouraging people to follow the guidelines, just like Barbara was saying. People are not doing it. We're not getting like they need to, but to follow the guidelines that are being put out. And you know, Harnett County supports these guidelines too. Just let it hear from us. They need to hear from us the same thing. But you're absolutely right. The problem they're going to run into on the restaurants, though, is I saw an interview the other day. The guy was saying that if you open a restaurant and you only have 25% capacity or 50% capacity, you're going to lose money. There's absolutely no way that you can do it, because you'll have to have the same staff to do all the stuff you got to do, and less revenue. So it's going to have to be some way to work it out where you can open it up and let people be a little bit more mindful of what they do. The problem we have is with the government trying to tell everybody what they got to do, but people need to do what they're supposed to do.
They're not doing it.
Yeah, common sense plays a lot.
And that's out the window.
And that lacks tremendously in the human population today.
Well, I think that the county and the health department, as well as the EMS is doing a great job of trying to control this, but the thing about it is that I personally feel like other counties, the citizens need to hear from the commissions, the governing body of this county. And we don't have to change anything. John, he's very equipped and putting everything in place that we should be doing as far as these restaurants or whatever. And if you say that they're not gonna make any money, and I know they're not gonna make any money right now, but they could if the numbers continue to drop down.
Right.
And they're not gonna drop down if we don't let the citizens know what they have to do in order for this to happen. So, that's my thinking.
To show that John does work late on Saturday afternoon, he actually